Let's talk about all of the books that I read in December. I didn't have my best reading month, but quality had the best time of my life reading these books, so let's talk about them. Hello everyone, welcome to my December wrap-up video. Before I get into all the books that I read in December, definitely make sure that you always like and subscribe. Come join my community of fellow book lovers. Also check my description box below for all my socials, Pango Books account, my Patreon, where you can get exclusive content that is not found on YouTube, and then also my Bookish Box Ambassador website where you get 10% off the entire store, and then also my Fable link to my book club on the Fable app. If you do not want to be a Patreon member but you still want to read along with us on a different book, come join us over there. I had some hit or misses this month, and I'm really not going to take a whole lot of time to talk about that because I really want to talk about these books. I did have one DNF in December, sadly, but let's go ahead and talk about it, with the first book being Infernium by Kari Lake. This book I ended up giving 3 stars to. It is the second and final book in the Nightshade duet that she had came out with. This book, it did good on wrapping up the story and finishing up some storylines, but what I didn't like is that it was just way too long. The writing really slowed down. We had some POVs that I just was not interested in. It kept taking me out of the story. I absolutely loved the gothic vibes and the dark undertones of the story from book 1, but I feel like book 2 really fell flat for me. There is some trigger warnings in here due to miscarriages and things like that. All in all, I don't feel like this was a great conclusion to a duology. I feel like we could have probably made this a standalone and just really trimmed down both books and compiled them together. But however, I'm happy that I read it. I will be reading more of Kari Lake because I did like her writing. Loved the way that she built her characters and their inner monologue. So I will be reading more from the author in the future. The next book that I read in December was my DNF for the month, and sadly it is for, is it Ketchup Book Club, I think, that Becca had announced was reading this, and that is Malice by John Gwynne. I may give this another shot in the future, but right now it is just a straight DNF. I didn't really like it. I didn't like the writing style. I didn't like how we had way too many characters way too quickly. I think I made it 10% of the way through the book, and this is a chunker, and we already had like 10 people that we were following, and I just couldn't get into it. Unfortunately, epic and high fantasy, they can be hit or miss for me. They have to be done a certain way for me to enjoy them, and sadly John Gwynne's writing just didn't hit for me. The next book I read was Blood and Moonlight by Erin Beatty. This is the first book in a duology, and I gave it 2 stars. I could not get into this story. It's very low spice. There's just a little bit maybe in there if I remember correctly, but for the most part there's really not. This is very unique. It deals with blood magic, and it deals with this city that is dealing with these murders that are happening, so you're trying to solve this murder mystery, and why does our girl have blood magic? Why is she an apprentice for building architecture whenever she really needs to be in this other place? The romance in here, I didn't really feel it. I feel like we were introduced to the guy, and then all of a sudden she's just like, I want him, I need him, I'm infatuated, and there was just like no development. It just fell so flat for me. I didn't really feel it from him. I really didn't feel it from her, and the murder mystery was good. It kind of kept me engaged where the other things were falling flat for me, and the twist at the end, it really got me. I thought that I had it solved, but I didn't. However, I am not going to be continuing on with this, so I will be getting rid of this one, and then of course the second book, Silence and Shadow. I wanted to try to go on and read it and see if I would end up loving it, but there's just too many books out there that I want to read, and I don't think that I need to force myself just to finish a duology. The next book that I read was To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This book is dealing with sirens, and it really feels like it is a Little Mermaid retelling, but darker in tone because our girl loves to kill, and so that's not very Disney of our girl, but it's very dark and very twisty, but you can definitely tell that it takes a lot from The Little Mermaid and makes it a retelling. I should have listened. I don't remember which subscriber it was a couple of videos ago that had commented that they read it and they should have DNF'd it, but they pushed through. And I will say, I was enjoying it for the first like 40%, and then from like then on, I was losing interest. And then at the very end, I was like, seriously? Like, this is how we're gonna end the book. The writing really had me engaged. The story had me engaged from page 1, but like 40%, like I said, it just like all lost my interest. I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with this. I'm kind of done with her constantly wanting to kill people, constantly having this negative thinking of it. Like, at this point, you need to have a different mindset. I feel like there has been ample opportunity for that character development, and it didn't happen. So I will be getting rid of this and my bookish box edition of To Kill a Kingdom, because it just didn't hit for me. The next one I read was If I Have to Be Haunted by Miranda Sun. This is a standalone, and it deals with a girl who, I think she's Asian. Is she Chinese? I think she might be Chinese, and she can see the dead. She is told by her mother to never, show that she can see the dead. Don't even act like you can do that. Well, whenever one of the popular boys who kind of bullies her a little bit is found dead, and she is needing to help him, they are kind of on this quest to figure out what to do, how to make things right, and he learns about her secret. But then it's about like their romance and how they get closer, and how just because you come from money doesn't mean that you have everything. And she learns a lot about herself. It was cute. It was good. It is a YA, so there really isn't hardly any spice in here. I did give it 3 stars. It was just an okay book. I will be getting rid of it because I don't think that I'm ever going to think about this book again, but I am happy that I read it because it was a really good, wholesome love story and kept me engaged for most of the book. The next one that I read was Hunt Me Darling by Marie Rose. This is a very, very dark romance, and it is dealing with our girl. She is an FBI forensic profiler, kind of like top of her game. She is brought in because there is like a serial killer in this city, and so she is brought in to try to figure out how they can find the killer, dissect who they are, figure out some more clues than what they currently have. And she finds out that a lot of the women that were being stalked, if they went and told anybody about it, they would end up murdered. Well, she ends up starting to get stalked by this serial killer, and they're kind of having this little truth or dare game. Come to find out, it is 2 brothers, and there is way more to the story and backstory that you find out as it goes on, and it is their romance, and it is very spicy. I will say this is like a standalone. You don't have to read the second book, and I don't think I'm going to continue on because I am happy where it ended, but I was pretty intrigued. It was kind of like a reverse take a little bit on, the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. And of course, our brothers, they have a reason for what they're doing, and you unravel that mystery as you go on. If you want a very dark, spicy romance, one that you can quickly read because it's not very long, definitely try out Hunt Me Darling. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The next one that I read was Truth and Other Lies by Lyra Wolf. This is book 1 in the 9 World Rising series, and it is a very Viking coded because you are following Loki, who is the trickster god in Norse mythology. I gave this 2 stars. What is this book? I started out, it's like urban fantasy. It was like a girl in our times, she waked a god, he's naked, and then all of a sudden we're like in the past. And I just couldn't get connected with any of these characters. I didn't understand Loki. I didn't understand what was happening. I felt myself like just thinking of other things as I was reading it. So needless to say, I only gave this 2 stars. By the end of it, was just like, okay, I'm glad I read it because my mom bought it for me for Christmas a couple years ago, which is my fault because I did have it on my Amazon wish list, but this was not it. And then the final books that I read were all part of a series, and it is the first 4 books of The Hollow Boys by Monty J. At the time of filming this, it is a couple days before Christmas, so I may get to the 5th and final book before the end of the month. If not, then I will, of course, probably pick it up in January. But let's talk about our Hollow Boys, shall we? You have book 1, which is The Lies We Steal, and this is following Alistair and Briar. And let me tell you something. Briar comes from a thieving background. Her dad is in prison. She ends up going to Oregon, I think, to live with her uncle, and he is a professor at this college. And so she ends up going to this college as well that is made up of all of these rich kids that come from very, very wealthy families. And I can't remember, oh, it's Hollow Heights University. It's in Ponderosa Springs. And she ends up getting entangled with Alistair Caldwell, who is one of the Hollow Boys. There are 4 of them, and everybody kind of steers clear from them because they have some not so good, reputations, and they come from, of course, very wealthy families, and it is Alistair and Briar's romance. But what is really good is that the overarching plot, there is a continuing story that it links all of the boys together and links all of the love interests that the boys have together as well, so you have to read them in order. But I will tell you, this started off so good. It introduces you to why the boys are doing what they're doing, who they are, all their different quirks that they have, some of the love interests, and the backstory. I absolutely loved it. I loved Alistair so much. And then you get to book 2, which is The Truths We Burn. And this is about Rook and Sage. It's Rook and Sage's romance. And you won't even really know who Sage is unless you read the first book, so that's why you have to read them in order. But let me tell you something. Our guy, he is a pyro. He loves to set things on fire, and he is literally on fire. Like, this man is just, oh my goodness, so good. So I loved it. And of course, the overarching plot, we're starting to get to know a little bit more about what is happening and what they can do to stop everything. Absolutely loved Rook and Sage's story. And then 3rd and 4th book is The Blood We Crave, Part 1 and Part 2. And this is Thatcher's story with Lyra. And let me tell you something. Lyra is a stalker. Having a female stalker was like everything, honestly. Thatcher, they have a backstory that isn't presented until this book between Thatcher and Lyra. And there is a reason why she is obsessed with him. There is a reason why he kind of ignores her. I love their story. It is so good. Whenever the 3rd book ended, I was like, I have to get to the next one immediately. So I absolutely love Thatcher and Lyra. Now, I haven't read the 5th and final book, which is The Oath We Give. And this is Silas and Coraline's story. And Silas is our broody boy. He is the one that is quiet. He is the one that has lost the most in all of the friends. And he also has some mental disabilities that kind of keep him from being, I guess, what you would call normal. I think Silas is normal. I love him. He is a marshmallow. But this is their story, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but I desperately want to, so it will be on my TBR for January if I don't get to it by the end of the month. Alright, so those are all the books that I read in December. It didn't start out very well with a few 2 and 3 stars and a DNF. I was not being very hopeful, so I just decided to mood read. And what better way than to read a dark romance that is a quick and easy read. And I was flying through these books. So I can't wait to finish up the series. Let me know down below, have you read any of these books, or are you going to read any of them? And if you do not want to leave me a comment, then you can leave me a butterfly emoji just to let me know that you were here and that you did watch the video. Come join me on Fable, come join me on Patreon, come read books with us and get exclusive content, and I will see you all next time. Bye!